What is going on, everyone? Trust the buzz. What is going on, everyone? Trust the buzz here if you're new to the channel. I make Charlotte Hornets content, so if that interests you, make sure you go ahead and hit that subscribe button down below. If you cannot tell by the thumbnail title of this video, in today's video, we're going to be talking about the Charlotte Hornets 111-102 victory over the Indiana Pacers. And man, what a game! What a game! There was times where it looks like the Pacers maybe. I wouldn't say they had all the momentum. I'm not gonna say they were looking like they were gonna run away with the game, but they had momentum. There was times where we had momentum. There was times I felt like we were giving the game to them. There was times I felt like the refs were giving the game to them, and yet the Charlotte Hornets were able to prevail and kind of towards the end really keep their distance away from the Pacers. And the Pacers tried. They tried to come back, but the Hornets did a really good job of keeping the game out of reach. There were some great games by Grant Williams coming off the bench. The 5 out that Steve Clifford mentioned, if you watch the the post-game press conference, I mean, he said it all. Being able to play 5 out with Grant Williams has opened up the lane for Miles Bridges, has opened up just the game in general for the team as a whole, because we don't have to have a traditional big sitting in the paint. Similar to Nick Richards, who had a terrible game, but we'll talk about that later. The stats won't say how bad of a game to me I think he had. But we'll talk about that once again when we get there. The 5 out was just tremendous for us. Grant Williams ended up having like 20 points. Let's see. Grant Williams had 21 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, and he was 2 of 6 from 3. And I felt like even though it was only 2 hits, when he hit, it mattered. It felt as though it was clutch, even though none of them, I don't think either of them were technically in clutch time, but they felt clutch. It felt like we needed it, and he hit and he delivered. So shout out to Grant Williams for that. Then the excellent defense he was able to play. He's able to add just some intensity on the defensive end. He's able to add some physicality to the end. I just really like him. I really, really like Grant Williams. I've said time and time again that I think PJ is going to do well in Dallas, and I think Grant was going to be good for us. It was just a matter of having those guys be in the right situations, and based on how both teams are constructed right now, they are in the right situations now. So I'm just excited to see to continue to see what Grant Williams does, because he's done a lot. He was even cutting to the basket in a couple of these plays, and of course, spreading the floor, getting to the rim. He was just doing Grant Williams things, and I mean, I really can't be thankful enough, because him being able to be a consistent five, because that was the thing with PJ. PJ, he fit that same mold, and you wanted him to play small ball 5, but it just wasn't his thing. He could do it for spurts, but Grant Williams was most of the time playing small ball 5. There was times out there, sometimes you could see him at the 4, of course, because Nick Richards, but most of the time he was basically the 5, and it helped us tremendously. Even times when Bertans was out there, Grant Williams technically was still the 5, even though, of course, Bertans is taller. It's just the physicality he brings is just huge for the team. Speaking of Grant Williams and his size, Miles Bridges just being electric on both ends of the floor. He just seemed active. He seemed engaged. That punch that he had, that dunk he had, he really punched it on. Even though that was a poor choice of words, you get the point. He really dunked it on Miles Turner. That was huge. That was a huge part in the game. And Miles Bridges also was hitting some threes. He showed his playmaking ability. There was a play where he thread the needle between, I think it was Miles Turner and Isaiah Jackson, and hit Roland Cody Martin, which I think that's something they should do a little more, is have Miles kind of do like obscure pick and rolls with certain players, because I think it could work. Because with Miles, he could do anything. He can do a step back. He can pass. He can go around. Like I really like that matchup, depending on of course the defense. But I do think they should kind of look into that, because I think it's something that could really help out this team. Miles Bridges, like I said, just had an excellent game. And another person that no one's going to talk about as far as statistically, I think Brandon Miller had a great game. When you think about how the game went for him, in foul trouble. There was a part like in the second quarter, like towards the end of the second quarter, where I felt like we were losing him. He was kind of just getting frustrated, but he bounced back in the second half, and to me, he looked a lot better. He didn't really get too down. You saw him hype when Miles had to dunk over Miles Turner. There was just things that I felt as though that easily could have took Brandon Miller out the game, but he decided to continue to lock in. He was playing excellent defense on Tyrese Halliburton at times. He was just playing overall pretty good defense, and the fact that Was his shot? I don't think he was his shot. Yeah, he was 4 8 from the field, 2 5 from 3. So it's not that his shot wasn't falling. It was just more so it wasn't at the rate in which we're used to seeing it. But I think that him realizing, okay, they don't really need me offensively this game. Seth Curry with 18 points, and he looked great. He was able to get into the mid range a little bit. Of course, he was hitting his threes. He was able even to get to the basket a couple of times. So Seth Curry really looking like Steph Curry on really a few of his plays. You can tell the family's related because a lot of their moves are very, very similar. But with that being said, Brandon Miller, I felt as though realized kind of like in that third quarter, early fourth quarter, they don't really need me to score. Yeah, yes, he had a really good mid range, I think, towards the end of the fourth quarter, but he realized they don't really need me to score. He locked in on defense and was just as hyped for the guys scoring. And that's what we need. We need that, especially for guys like Brandon Miller. That was the thing about the previous rendition of this team. Now, I'm not sitting here saying that, oh, the way we are now, we're going to go on and be this great team. There's still some kinks to work out, but what I did like from specifically, I just say Brandon Miller. You really could apply it to a couple of guys here, but I'll just apply it to Brandon Miller. With Brandon Miller, him realizing that and, okay, well, then this is what they need from me this game. That's more so what we need because the previous rendition of this team, we had guys who were switchable, PJ being one of them. Miles Bridges, Brandon Miller, Terry Rozier, LaMelo Ball. We have guys that are pretty good at a lot of different things, but a lot of times it was if my shot's not falling, you're not getting anything else from me. And I'm not saying Brandon Miller would have not cared about defense if this happened pre-trade deadline, but it is just nice to see, especially in this moment of having guys that can kind of carry the load. It allows Brandon Miller to step in that role more where, hey, they don't really need me to score. I'll do everything else. And we saw a lot of that. Trey Mann, I think, had an excellent game. He had 11, 7, and 9. In what way? Yeah, he had 11 points, 9 rebounds, and 7 assists. And everything to me, and maybe it's because I'm watching him closely, but everything to me that Trey Mann does is memorable as far as like when you're watching the game. I just feel as though he's really smooth. He's a lot smoother than I thought he would be because one thing we saw like with Nick Smith Jr., I don't think any Charlotte Hornets fan is going to say Nick Smith Jr. is bad, even though he was assigned to the G League earlier today. I don't think anyone's going to say Nick Smith Jr. is bad. If anything, they say he just plays way too fast. It's almost like he's too excited. Trey Mann is the opposite. Trey Mann is going to play his game. I know that in his press conference, actually, he said that he's still trying to get the NBA legs under him because he sat out, and that's something I didn't think about. It's very similar to an injury. Yes, you're not technically injured, but you're not playing. So practice shape is not the same as in-game shape. So he's still getting the legs underneath him. But for him to be just chase the ball down when it comes to getting rebounds, because that was something that we would see in the past where the ball would just dribble and then it'll automatically land into the hand of the opposing team. Trey Mann actually hunts those balls down. His ability to scan the court when he's able to play make, he's always, I think even when he drives to the basket, and I still need to see more film on this, but it does feel like every time he knows he wants to go to the basket, he does survey his surroundings and trust his guys. I mean, because you have no choice but to do it. It's still, you just met these people, so you have to trust them if you want to win. He trusts his guys to either stay in the same spot or at least move to a better spot. So he surveys the field and realizes, okay, Miles Bridges over here in the corner. I see that he has this hash open. If he's not in that corner when I look, he might be in that hash. And if he's in the hash, he might be open. So there's just certain things I feel like he does before. He's just very decisive. He has high IQ. Steve Clifford said that about, the team as a whole now, that they feel like there's more high IQ guys. And it's just great to see, man. It is really just great to see. And also, Trey Mann, I can't sit here and point out all of his defensive possessions, but he looked really good on defense. As a whole, we look really good on defense. This is, off the top of my head, this is probably one of the lowest totals in points that I've seen from the Charlotte Hornets as far as the defense, 102. With the Indiana Pacers, if I'm not mistaken, is the number one scoring team, like a top 5 3-point shooting team. I think they're number 1 in field goal percentage, which I think they kept that up. They're number 1 in assists, which I believe assist numbers, they kept that up. But they were not scoring, and like I said, they're a top 3-point shooting team, and I think we just did a good job of being able to stop such an offensive juggernaut and win. I mean, yes, it was a home game. Those are always, you take a little bit of the edge off. It's not the same as an away, so I am eager to see what this team will look like on an away game. But it's another challenge, and another challenge another day. And I think these guys are really built for that. Think about it. When we first won the first game against the Memphis Grizzlies, I had people in the comment section saying, oh, well, it's just the Grizzlies. I had multiple people say that. And I was just like, you're right. You're not wrong. It definitely is just the Grizzlies. There, if any team is as banged up as we are, it's probably the Memphis Grizzlies. But it was just nice to see the team get a win. It was nice to see the team kind of take a step in the right direction. Now, we play a playoff team. Now, granted, I will say they're sliding. They're not playing as well as they were. Actually, they've kind of been sliding for a minute now. But it doesn't change the fact that they're above 500 team and they're in the playoff race. And we beat them. And we beat them at their own game. We didn't shoot well. They didn't shoot well from three. I think both teams shot well from the field, but it was just good to see us being able to play defense. We had everybody switching. Nick Richards really got exposed in the beginning because, and I feel like this happens every time we play the Pacers, but Nick Richards gets exposed because Miles Turner to me, he's just a great player. He's able to stretch the floor. He's really good in the pick and roll. It doesn't help that Tyrese Halliburton is his point guard, so it just makes the pick and roll even cleaner, and Nick Richards can just not keep up. There was times he was leaving guys open. It's very similar to what I said about the Memphis Grizzlies game. And that's why I say I think he had a bad game. There was also some times that players, they would pass in the ball, and he would just drop it, and he would just lose the ball in the paint. He just didn't have a good game. Statistically, I think he had a pretty decent game. He had 13 points, 9 rebounds, and he had that block. I do respect him for that block because Isaiah Jack, who was it? No. Was it Aaron? I think Aaron Nesmith dunked it on him, and then he fell over, and I was like, oh, Nick Richards. You know what I always say, he's always on the ground. But then I think Isaiah Jackson tried to come and do the same thing, and he blocked that. So shout out to Nick Richards for not letting that kind of get to him. But overall, he just had a really sloppy game. To me, he's just really clumsy. I think he has the physical tools to be a much better player than what he is. I can't really tell if it's the mentality. I have no idea what it is, but he just seems like the tall guy that the coach is forcing to play basketball because he's tall. That's just what it comes off as. We've seen Nick Richards, I think, post a 2020 game before, so it's not like he can't do it. I just don't know what the on-off switch is for him. But as of right now, he's going to be our center. It is what it is. I'm not mad at it. We can do better, but it does help that we're able to go to that 5 out and have Grant Williams be our 5. I still need Nick Richards to do a little more when it comes to being able to trust him to be a traditional center. Now, granted, I will say that a team like the Indiana Pacers is a team that likes to facilitate a team. If you saw, they had great ball movement. Our rotations at times were even better. They had great ball movement, and Nick Richards just wasn't able to keep up. And it is what it is, and I think that's where the 5 out comes in handy. Teams were doing it against us, running the 5 out, and it worked, so it's good to see that we're able to kind of run it the same. As if we're going to continue with the new guys, I already mentioned how Seth Curry looked. Vasily, okay, I've heard Micic, I've heard Micic, I've heard Micic. I've heard different variations. I'm going to say Micic, and we're just going to roll with that. And when I hear him say his name, I will correct it, but I'm pretty sure it's Micic. That was the one I saw the most. So we're going to roll with that. It might be Micic, but we're going to go Micic for now. Vasily Micic, what I liked about his game today is that he didn't have the 18 points that he had in the first game. Not at all. It wasn't even close. What I did like is that you see the impact that his ball handling ability plays, the impact that his basketball IQ plays. You see you see the impact of his dribble penetration, because he's pretty good at getting to the basket. I mean, I kept saying this about Ish Smith, is that he would get to the basket and then not do anything because he couldn't really kick it out. He couldn't really go up with it. Micic, you don't know which one he's gonna do because the way his motions are just so fluid. He at one point he's gonna go up, act like he's gonna go up and then dish it out to the corner. And that seems to work a lot. Now I know when there's going to be more and more film on him, more teams may adjust to that. To me, I will say he's going to keep doing it until it works. But the second it stops working, I have full faith in him based on the way I've seen him play. He's going to adjust and find something else to do because his motion is so fluid that he has the ability to trick you. You don't know if he's going to pass it. You don't know if he's going to go up with it. And then also on the dives, on the pick and roll, he's able to dot whoever it is rolling to the basket. So I really like this game today. It's not one of those things. This wasn't one of those games where of course, like I said, he filled up the stat sheet, but just watching the game, you see the immediate impact he has compared to Cody Martin playing point guard, which I'm sick and tired of seeing Cody Martin play point guard. We might get it one more time. I don't know. I don't know. That's something that we really need to monitor. I don't know why they just won't move maybe Trey Mann to the point guard position. He just looks a little more comfortable than Cody Martin does. We'll see. I think if because that to me, as of right now, that's the only issue I have with Cody Martin's game. I mean, it is what it is. He's not as good of a defender as he used to be, but he does show flashes at times. If they're not going to get rid of him in the offseason, I would just like to see him return to that guy where he's going to hit an open shot and he's going to play defense. And because that's all, like teams like this, especially when LaMelo Ball comes back, that's, year 2 of Brandon Miller, Miles on a deal, hopefully. All these, remaining factors, we don't really need anybody to do anything special. Continue doing what you were doing to why you even got that deal. If he can do that and then ball handle in just like spurts or just to switch up the, play, all for that. But this whole, having him be the lead guard, just not working for me. But, I mean, we're winning. It is what it is. But I think we're winning more so because of other players and not because Cody Martin, our point guard. I just think overall it was a good game. Davis Bertans, he hit his first shot and then didn't hit nothing else after that. I'm not mad at it. I wanted him to keep shooting, and he did keep shooting. He ended up being like 1 for 5, 1 for 6. I'm not mad at it whatsoever because you need to allow the shooters to shoot, especially guys of his caliber. He's going to hit more times than not. Just tonight, it just wasn't going his way. The shot, I don't think any of them were bad. There was one where he was coming like on the right wing, and he kind of came around like a screen. I think it was like a Brandon Miller screen. And that one was kind of but if you really look at it, he was open. So I don't really blame him for taking a shot. And then a couple of them was the corners. He's not going to miss that too often. So overall, I think we're in a good space. Next game is against the Atlanta Hawks. That's going to be a big game just because of the fact that it is the Hawks. And we beat them, and I feel like they're probably going to hold that against us as far as, of course, they want to come out and beat us because now that was the first game of the season. So now they're going to be like, oh, well, we can't lose to this team again. And so I think they're going to come out guns a-blazing, especially considering the fact that All-Star break is coming out. Trae Young's an All-Star. There's going to be some hype around them as far as within the team. So they're going to try to look to win the game. But hey, we have what it takes. It's not like the Hawks is this tremendous team. If I'm not mistaken, I think they lost to the Bulls tonight. I'm not going to take the time to look. So if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I think they lost to the Bulls tonight. If they did not lose to the Bulls tonight, I know that Ayo Dosunmu had a crazy game against them. So with that being said, I think that I like our chances. If you're telling me Ayo Dosunmu, who I think is a good player, but he had almost a 30-point game tonight against the Hawks, I like our chances. I'm not really worried about a 5th pick I'm not really worried about a top 5 pick, especially in this draft. I feel as though in this draft class, there's a lot of role players. I've said this before. That's what we need. We need guys that can just kind of plug and play and replace some guys that, maybe are on expensive contracts that we don't really need or don't really have a future with the organization. So I'm not really too concerned about keeping the pick. I'm concerned about keeping the pick, but I'm not too concerned with where it lands. So there's not someone that's like a true far and away in between number 1 guy. I've seen people have, I can't pronounce his last name, but Zachary as the first round pick. First overall pick. I've seen Alexander Sarr as the first round pick. I've seen Ron Holland. So there's so many guys that you can choose. It's just a matter of what your team needs. I'm not really concerned with the pick. Let's continue winning. I think Steve Clifford is doing a pretty good job with what he has right now. It seems like the guys are listening to him. Trey Mann has nothing but high praise for him. I do hope we get another coach, which, I'll make a video about this, but Mitch Kupchak is taking a leadership role, or not a leadership role, but a advisory role with the Charlotte Hornets now. So he's no longer the president of basketball operations. I know they're looking at Elton Brand, which I'm not a fan of. I know they're looking at people within the Bulls office, which I'm not a fan of because they didn't do anything very similar to Mitch Kupchak. I don't want any of those guys. If I'm looking at anybody, I'm looking at the Pelicans GM. I'm looking at the assistant GM for the Nets. There's some guys, and we'll talk about it once the video comes out. But yeah, that's some interesting news for today. But overall, great game, great team win. That's really what it was. It was a team win. And even with the game, sometimes kind of going against us, especially with the refs. Because tell me this, the Pacers, I think, foul more than anybody in the league, if I'm not mistaken. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Correct me. and yet they only had 11 fouls, and they averaged like 20 something. That's pretty insane. And then we had 17. I hate to. I'm not a ref blamer, but this season I think we've been on the end of some pretty bad calls, and especially Brandon Miller. But overall, thanks so much for watching this video. I'm so excited to continue making content for you guys because this is what we've been waiting for. It's just hard to do it when the team's bad and they're losing the same way. I've been through the spiel before, and I'm pretty sure you felt the same way. But thank you so much. This video is probably going to come out in the morning because I am old and I'm not staying up to edit it and upload it. So I'll see you guys in the morning. But once again, I really, really appreciate you watching. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.